inspired by kingdom principles that work for you.
Thank you for watching Forward, Upward, Onward Together as a part of RBNTV. My name is Carrie and I'm delighted to have you join us. When many businesses are making some tough decisions and even going out of business, our next guest is taking the plunge and starting one of her own. This pandemic economy, while difficult and stressful, still provides opportunities for businesses. And so we welcome our next guest, Syndey Engel. Syndey Engel is the president and founder of Syndey ePublicity. And she began her public relations and integrated marketing journey in 2010 while she was an undergraduate in New York University's Media, Culture, and Communications program. It was an exciting time to get her feet wet as the advent of social media was just beginning to heat up. And digital media conglomerates were multiplying by the day. Fast forward 10 years later, and Syndey has led agency and in-house publicity and reputation strategy for some of the biggest global lifestyle brands. And now she's leading her own business. So let's welcome Syndey Engel.
Good morning, Carrie. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
You know what? I was just talking to someone about this. I think we just have to keep up with the silver linings, positivity during really hard times. So again, you've always been a silver lining and a positive person in my life. So it's great to be here with you.
Oh, it's great to be here with you as well. I'm so glad that you chose to take the time out and have a conversation with us in Forward, Upward, Onward Together. And so, you've been involved in public relations and integrated marketing for the last 10 years. And so did it start in college at NYU? And how did you really get involved in it?
Sure. There is a big hospitality brand. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Four Seasons. We can laugh about that. Obviously, it's very, very well known and publicized out there. And I had interned for them when I was at New York University, and I fell in love with the hospitality industry and, the marketing and the PR side of what that industry could do. And it was there while I was at NYU and actually studying my craft, which is PR, that I actually really got to learn more about it from an in-house company perspective. So that's really where it all started for me, is when I was in college and I was doing some assistant work for them at their New York location.
Yeah, hospitality is this is such a tough time for hospitality. And, so much has changed in the last 10 years from when you would have started really until now. We would have dealt with, the growth of the hospitality industry, the growth of the Four Seasons brand, and then really to what we have today. But I still do want to backtrack a little bit, really for those who might not know, you may just have heard of public relations when, during crisis management, when something goes wrong. But what is public relations and why is it even important for businesses?
PR, and we can laugh about this because there's so many different terms. I feel like there's textbook terms, as you just said. There are terms, like you said, we heard on TV a lot because of COVID and, maybe past crisis cases like hurricane management. But PR really is about being an intermediary between a company, an organization, a service, and the actual general public, the consumer. So the question with PR is always, how do we get there? How do we get to the consumer? And it's PR people like me who have built relationships with big media players or any type of medium that's tied to getting you out to the public. And it's my successful relationships that have gotten me to promote that client, that service, that government organization right into the public because of the stories that we help create with traditional and new media outlets.
Business and successful businesses, particularly those in the hospitality industry, are those, I would imagine, that, are really good at storytelling, that are able to really enhance their brand and to really put it into the public sphere so that they can tell the story of their business, as I said. But how is it different from advertising and marketing? I mean, I don't want to get too much into, NYU public relations 101, but I think that our viewing audience still really wants to know, what's the difference between advertising and marketing and public relations?
Well, I mean, they're all very similar, and I love to use the word integrated because they all mold together. They're under the same umbrella. But where advertising and a lot of marketing campaigns are actually known as pay to play, and there's a substantial amount of dollars attached to that campaign that gets your message out immediately. With PR, it's all about this non-fee based editorial relationship. So when you're pitching a product, service, or client, or a particular story to the media, there's no fees. In most cases, it's changed a little bit depending on what you're doing, but it's an editorial relationship. So everything is done with the story in the back of their minds, and they're reviewing or covering it with no dollars. The way a lot of these newspapers and broadcast outlets actually make their money is because of the advertisers. But with PR people, it's just a traditional form of storytelling that is very objective. So there's no fee attached to it. Whereas with a billboard, you're telling those campaign leaders exactly what you want, and you're paying a price for it. So that's where PR can be very challenging. We're creating a story that, what's going to interest the consumer at the end of the day. And it takes a lot of effort because typically a lot of companies don't have heavy ad dollars anymore. So they're looking for the PR people to get some SEO, like search engine optimization on digital and a bunch of different types of platforms.
Yeah, fascinating. You spoke about like relationship marketing and relationship management, and a lot of that goes hand in hand. How have you used, the way that you've been able to cultivate relationships for a lot of your clients? You don't have to mention names, but I'd love to hear how you've used. You're a great relationship builder, and you have a huge network. And so, how have you been able to really leverage that for your clients and even for your business?
Yeah, I always say, and this is the advice I give to interns who have worked with me, people who are trying to break into the field, and people who just want to know what makes me so very easy to talk to and how I'm the one at the table who, if somebody says, hey, I need an in at this place, or I need an introduction to this person, they always joke that I'm kind of this person that knows a lot of people and can kind of introduce people to different people or introduce different corporate America people to other people. And it's really based on this advice that I always say, just talk and start a conversation. And in PR in particular, it's very important to be connected to digital outlets. So like, and I'm not going to say names, but maybe a big online news platform, print, one of the traditional Sunday papers that everyone loves. And then also broadcast. So whether we're on, NBC or something like that, and I see a great broadcast journalist and how I want to make sure a story is told to them, it's all about connecting with people in the field and outreaching to them through different platforms. Like in PR, we use different media databases. So it might just be introducing yourself and just a quick, 1 or 2 lines about yourself and what you want to be able to collaborate with them on. It may be going on a tool, which I highly recommend, and Carrie, I know you use too, is LinkedIn, which is a great networking platform that allows me to type in something like broadcast journalist or, travel reporter. And it helps me build that initial relationship before I start pitching and going off on a particular, topic with them. So it's so important to use resources like word of mouth, other people that I trust in the industry that I might say, do you know this person? It's those conversations that happen through using the databases, like I said. And then it's like straightforward social media sites like LinkedIn, like Instagram. I mean, I just connected with the writer because I loved her Instagram content. And I said, I just saw you wrote for, Food and Wine magazine as an example. And I was really impressed. And I loved the type of stories she was putting out and how she was able to use them on Instagram. And now the joke is sliding into DMs, sliding into messages, but it works for corporate America if you have your own business platform. I don't recommend people using their personal accounts necessarily to do that. But for social media people, like me, who has their own social media platform for my business, it's a great way to be able to segue into a conversation with them.
That's terrific, and I'm sure our viewing audience can see you're a tremendous conversationalist. And so not only does and I would imagine that this is true, not only are you a good conversation, but that also should carry over into social media. And when you're reaching out to a lot of these, your connections and developing your network, your personality should really come through. And in my dealings with you, I know that is definitely true, where you're able to connect with people over the written word, right? Over email, over instant messaging, or over DMs, as you say. And so, how can people really inject their personality without really like copying and pasting a message that you would have sent to like 10 other people when you're trying to make an introduction?
I think with networking, it's so important to find that human connection to them, right? So whether it's writing an email to a coworker, maybe someone you haven't interacted with as much and you're trying to get to know them, or if it's a journalist who you might never have talked to before. So I'm taking an example from my point of view as a PR person, right, who's worked with big global brands, and I'm trying to get to know somebody, on both the editorial side, and then internally is super important with interpersonal communication. So something I would do in a case like that is I would say, hey, I know we have a mutual connection that I've been talking to a lot about you. I'm going to use the example of, an editor. And I might say to them, hey, I used to work with such and such. You did that great story together on, I'm going to say hotel trends in 2020. And, I will get into a little bit about me, but then I'll explain a lot of what I like about what they're doing and how we can potentially collaborate. And giving human examples and adding that personality, whether it's even just a quick anecdote to the person, it makes all the difference than saying to a potential new client or editor and saying, hey, how are you? I have this client I want to pitch. That doesn't work because we're all in the business of humanity at the end of the day. It's about how can we storytell and connect to the right people. Now, on the other hand, let's say, Carrie, you and I were working together, and let's say I didn't know you, but I've heard of you through the grapevine, and we were going to be assigned on a project I found out in the future since you were moving to a different department or something like that. I may, get ahead of the game and reach out to you and just say, hey, I heard you're starting, on kind of my side of the business, and we're going to be doing a lot of work together. Let's say it was a nightlife platform, the nightlife, industry or platform that we're going to be developing. I may say, it was so great getting to learn through some of my industry colleagues, all the great work you did on the tech side of the business. So I'm really looking forward for you to moving more into the hospitality space and working with me. So it's just about those little connections that make all the difference that I feel in this space. And I'm sure you can relate, Carrie, as you're someone or somebody who's very well networked. So I'm sure that you feel exactly the same way. If you can't humanly connect to somebody, it just doesn't work at the end of the day.
I think that you're right. In a lot of societies, I'm from the Bahamas, and we wanted to get to know you. And a lot of, where we're from is that we ask, who's your people? And that's often a good network. You have to ensure that you really connect with them on a human level. As I started, this economy is very difficult, and businesses are making some really tough decisions. Why should they use their budgeted expenses, budgeted money that they've already budgeted for, their public relations strategies?
I think it's so important because, again, PR really helps you humanize something because of the story you're about to tell. And although marketing and advertising dollars are so important because it's part of that umbrella, PR is that final straw, that final part of the equation that really brings a marketing strategy all together. I've talked to CMOs and they're big fans of PR because of the way that it creates another type of narrative for all different verticals. With PR, we're not just, let's say I'm working for a hotel. You're not just working with travel editors. There could be a business story. There could be a great performer that's coming and you need to tell more of an entertainment story. So with PR, it really helps you go to different verticals and tell something that maybe a millennial might not normally see on a regular billboard or a customer relationship management, a CRM email. So you have to tap into other markets with digital, with print, for the person who may not be somebody who's watching TV all the time. There's people who might be a little bit more old school with their mentality, that they look for objective press to tell them something. I think a big thing what press has done well is these roundups that you'll see. Best hotels in the world, best concerts to see in 2021. I think that people need to be able to use these dollars to see what type of story they could tell in the community that's going to get them noticed. That's going to get them noticed in a way that they know that that editor is being very objective in how they're telling the story. I think PR is also a way to help with crisis support. I mean, listen, you could be a great advertiser and marketer and copywriter, but a PR person has that identity of somebody who can help with messaging, develop a strategy to help fix a major problem. Like with company closures right now, how do you tell that story without the public's perception being something very negative, that that industry is not going to bounce back? So we're also here in PR as a thought leader to really bring our clients to the forefront and say, hey, listen, we have the CEO, and they're going to talk about that, restaurants are not dead, or, the industry is not dead by any means. We may have had some setbacks with revenue, but let me be here as the thought leader to tell you on, national television that we're going to bounce back. We're working with PPP loans. We're working with a number of different things out there and getting creative. I think with the restaurant business, what they've really done well with the PR storytellers that they have is they have these people coming out there to the media, and they're talking about the amazing trends with outdoor and indoor dining that are going on, and still telling the story of how safe they are being. I think it takes a PR person to be able to say, look, we're safe and open for business. Here are the 5 bullet points of things that we're doing that are making our customer base feel, safe during such unprecedented times. So it's about having that communications messenger as liaison to the press to say, here's what we're doing. We have a creative way to tell a story.
Yeah, to your point, businesses can only get back on their feet once people feel safe. If it's going to a restaurant, staying at a hotel, shopping in in a department store somewhere, people will return once they feel safe at the end of the day. You mentioned something interesting, is that different demographics and different age groups, they get their news and their information from different sources. You said that, an older person may, watch a traditional news, read a traditional newspaper. We're millennials. And so, a lot of us, we pick up our smartphones and, we're getting a lot of our information from social media, for better or for worse. How have you seen and how have you used social to really leverage for your business's success?
I'm actually involved, and I never thought I would be that person to say, I'm part of a Facebook group with different journalists and media people, or I'm part of an Instagram network where we all kind of share ideas, in a direct message with each other. It is shocking when I look back and see that I joined a group that now I get a ton of media leads from. It's unbelievable. I might have a journalist from something as big as, Wall Street Journal and New York Times who might say, hey, everybody, I have a lead for a business story, and I need a CEO in, for example, the tech industry to weigh in on these topics. And it's like a light bulb going off, because if a client of mine fits that mold and that story and that angle, it's very easy for me to say, oh my God, let me reach out to that journalist now. Let me pitch my client, see if it's a fit. And what's the worst thing? It's not. It's, again, back to that conversation we had, Carrie, about networking. Networking is so critical. And then also, I will tell you this, and for any PR people who are new and they're watching, Twitter is an amazing area to follow media and different marketing personnel who may need help with the right PR contact. But, for example, a food and beverage editor will say, hey, I need one more expert for this story. And I can't believe they're using it as a way to get PR people to contact them now. It's usually the other way around in a lot of cases. So I love being able to have this, again, human connection, that I'm getting leads through great social media platforms that everyone is scared of sometimes. And I think there's that Netflix documentary that just came out about social networking. And while a lot of it can be scary, there's also such positive elements that they talked about too in some ways. And that led to a lot of conversations on broadcast TV after, the Netflix special aired. And it allows us to really stay true to the craft that we're in and not be afraid to reach out to a media person or a potential client to get through the day with what we have to do and what's going to make us better PR people. So.
Syndey, I got to tell you, you are brave. So you're jumping into uncharted territory. You've worked with some of the biggest brands around, and now you're starting your own brand. What happened? What led you to it?
I think this was a time where when we first got into this whole quarantine situation, it's been interesting because there's one of two ways that you can go. And you could go the negative approach and say, woe is me. It's a hard time financially. It's a really hard, scary time in our world. And then there's that eternal optimist, glass half full person, which I very much am. And I think to myself, and I've been coached over the years too, through career counselors too, when life gives you a hard time and different mentors, to always say, what can I do better for myself right now that I may not have thought of in other times because I was so busy with my day-to-day. How can I use this time as a positive to maybe learn something new, maybe start my own entrepreneurial endeavor? And I had so many people saying to me, just wait around to see what happens kind of with the corporate America world where I was working before. Maybe just, take a class or something. And I did take a class, which was great. I got a Northwestern certificate degree in sports and entertainment marketing, which is something I've always wanted to kind of flesh out for potential business opportunities and learn more about. But when it came to my own business and my entrepreneurial endeavor, a lot of people were like, that's going to take up a lot of time. And I realized I've worked for great brands. I have amazing connections. I've had so many great media and former mentors say to me, why don't you think about taking something and kind of making it more of a consultancy where you can help brands build themselves into maximum success on the PR front and work with other clients you may not have thought about in the past. So for me, that's when I was like, let me file for my own company in the state of New York where I live. It's actually a very easy process to get an LLC or an S Corp. It's actually very, very easy in working with an accountant or a lawyer. And once I did that, I really felt that I was like, I can do this. I now have this business name out here for consultancy. It's a freelance independent contracting endeavor. It's my own name. Now I just need to start with the new business development side. And that was really what was going to scare me, is pitching my services to others. I was so used to pitching PR opportunities to media. It was very different for me to promote myself and my new business endeavors. So what I started to do was use great former, clients, former colleagues of mine to be able to get my name out in the industry. And I just tested the waters. I used LinkedIn, I used referrals. And let me tell you, for every 100 people you reach out to, you will hear back from some people. And that was the defining moment for me, that I was like, I can have my own company. I can do this. I have people that are interested in hearing my point of view on the industry. And I also realized I could work with other people that I may have never gotten to work with if it wasn't for this. And it was being able to go to some of my past contacts and say, hey, I just started this. I'm now working with this person on a project or this company on a project. They were very proud of me. And I think the most important thing is turning that around to say, during hard times in quarantine, you have to find the area what's going to make you proud of yourself. And that's where I became really proud of myself, to know that the tools were always there. It was that I had to press go, stop, and start. And just, if it did, something didn't work, stop, start, play, do it again. So that's how it worked for me.
Wow, what an inspirational story. In just the last couple of months, the entire world has been upended. And to your point, we could have just, moped around at home and wait until things open up. And frankly, in a pandemic, you shouldn't feel pressured to do something, but you felt really compelled to use the skills that you had at your disposal. You already had the tools at your disposal, and that you were able to really use it to start something that was very interesting and revenue producing.
Yes, I mean, definitely during this time, it's a different kind of business model for people. They want press that's going to show now. And that's my strategy recommendation is the open for business messaging, or we have something new that's coming out that's going to help during hard times. So it's about just finding the right formula and being sensitive of the times that we're in, and I think that's what's making a difference for people starting their own business right now, Carrie, is that they're finding ways, how can they create solutions to the problems that are tied to the pandemic? If revenue is at a loss right now for certain places, how can somebody help maybe drive traffic back up to the website or indirectly sell, through forums and different podcasts, media outlets, areas that a PR person can help you get in through their particular contacts. So it does have its way of working out.
They say most of the innovation that's happened during, the last 100 years has really happened during, recessions, depressions, to happen during hard times as well. And so I'm sure that this will be really a bright spot. This will be the start of a really amazing future for you. And so are you, you've had a lot of history in hospitality. Do you see yourself continuing along the, that wavelength? New Yorkers think that they're at the center of the world, and really and truly a lot of things converge right there in New York. Yeah. So there's so many different directions that you can go. Where do you see your firm headed? Or which industry or industries?
Sure. So I always like to first say that I like to, even though I'm starting off as more of a smaller mom and pop brand, right? Because, I only have a couple of clients to start, and that's the way it should be. I am a New Yorker. So while I may be a smaller company, I'm part of this big scene and this big media conglomerate that is New York. So I definitely see myself staying in the Northeast, in the New York market, but definitely branding myself as somebody who's global, who's going to be able to travel a lot for the business when that resumes, or work with clients everywhere. So I like to define my vertical as lifestyle, because that encompasses hospitality, that encompasses travel and hotels and tourism. I also like to say wellness and the wellness lifestyle side of the game, because wellness is also part of that lifestyle trajectory. Fitness has been super important to me, and I've worked with some fitness brands in the past. Spa, I think it's so important though for me as somebody who's been able to promote self-care for myself, and what I've been able to do during this time is also be able to work with some more wellness clients too, to be able to kind of take a very different approach with PR, with wellness. And I think there's a lot that I can bring to the table for it. I might not have done as much of it as much as some other people, but I always say the world is our oyster right now, and what we can and can't do. And I never like to say can't, because people can teach themselves a lot of different things. You can teach yourself how the narrative will go in certain verticals you may not have been as comfortable with in the past. Anything can be self-taught.
What advice would you have for someone who may be a little bit timid in starting a business during this time? You just jumped in, and you said that you press play, pause, adjust, press play again. But what other advice would you have for those who may be interested in starting a business during this time?
Sure. I mean, you have to have that go-getter mentality. And, it's something that you really have to, if you're thinking about starting something, you have to know it's not always going to be as glamorous as it may seem. I am a CEO. I have my own company. I have some great clients I'm working towards. There are going to be days where you're up until very late at night trying to formulate your business plans. You're trying to, connect with others to let them know about what's going on and that you're now open for business. But I think the only person you can be better than is the one you are today versus the one you were yesterday. And if you just hit go and just try and just get yourself in that mindset, it makes a big difference than the person who, like I said in the beginning of our call, Carrie, than the person who says, woe is me, I don't want to start this, I'll just wait around. If you start with an entrepreneurial mindset, it is so great for what our future is in this world, because entrepreneurial endeavors are honestly like this new wave of what's going to be happening. Everyone has an idea, so why not brand your own idea into your own company? It doesn't have to be, let me invent something, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It can be, how can I provide services that I'm really good and talented at, and how can I put that onto another brand or type of organization? And you have to be able to tell yourself, I can do this. And I'll give you a perfect example to those who are listening. There was a couple weeks ago, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I was up late into the night, your hair is up in a messy bun, at 2 a.m, you're working on outreach lists, you're working on marketing plans for clients, and you're literally sitting there and you're like, I have not gotten one email back from somebody today. I'm stressed. And then I literally just had that meditation moment for a few minutes. And I was like, I am here for a reason. And I took this look back and all of these amazing things I've done and this positive praise I've been getting. And I took a look within myself and I was like, wait, you can do this. It is something that can be cultivated. And just like I said in the beginning of this particular point of the segment, you have to know that you have that go-getter within you. If you don't, and you don't feel comfortable putting yourself out there, then it'll never be a successful endeavor for you, because the only one you can impress at the end of the day before impressing everyone else is yourself and your goals and your mindset. So I recommend everyone do this. I mean, I've even seen people on Etsy creating jewelry. My cousin was just putting together a kid's sunglass and hair barrette and hair headband kind of line when she was, taking some time on the furlough off of her job, and it was doing really well. So there are forums to be able to become an entrepreneur in today's society, and feel free to reach out to me or anyone you feel comfortable with if you need a word of advice. My father is an entrepreneur by trade, and I count my lucky stars every day, and I'm so blessed that I have him, who has just been a great conversationalist with me through the process. Because now, versus my dad just being my dad and an overall mentor in my life, I now can have coffee with him in the morning and talk about the latest and our wow factor moments and the days when we literally want to put our head on the table and are like, I need a little bit of a moment, a meditation moment, and you will get through this. And again, there are people who want to listen to your product or service. Never forget that.
Social media now, you follow these folks on entrepreneurs on Instagram, and you watch these YouTube clips on how to be an entrepreneur, and they make it look so glamorous. And so I'm so glad that you really chose to be honest and say there are going to be days when it's just going to be hard, where you may get depressed, where you want to give up, where you just don't want to do it anymore. But you got to pick yourself up, right? And that's just what you did.
Exactly. I have 2 influencer friends, just sidebarring, who are the most authentic, real type of women. And they are entrepreneurs, because bloggers, there is a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of content development. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of partnership and business development. And what they said to me is, if somebody can't have an honest Instagram story or post to their followers saying literally it's 3 a.m. and I'm still working, then maybe they shouldn't be in this business, because you want to be able to connect to a great community of people who see you for you and trust your judgment on things in life. Influencers are who PR people work with too, because they're basically becoming the next form of new digital media. It's very easy to be able to work with them, because the authentic ones will tell their followers exactly the real deal. And I've been blessed at a lot of brands to work with them, and then with this new endeavor too.
Syndey, thank you so much for taking time with us at Forward, Upward, Onward Together. This was a fascinating conversation. And I say it was fascinating because you bring the theory of public relations, but then also you were able to really have a real human and empathetic discussion on the joys, and then as well as some of the authentic moments that you have in your quiet corner when you're starting your own business. And so, first of all, I wish you all the best. I say congratulations to you. I know Syndey Publicity will do very well under your hard work, your grit, your charismatic personality, and your conversational and networking skills. And so Best of luck, best wishes to you. If someone in our viewing audience wants to reach out to you, where can they do so?
For those of you who want to learn a little bit more or just even need some mentorship, advice, and guidance, if you want to do a similar endeavor during this time, you can reach out at sydneyepublicity.com. There's a contact email form right on the site, so you can get in touch with me directly. And thank you so much, Carrie, and your team for making this happen today. It's been a pleasure talking to you all today.
Appreciate you taking the time, Syndey. I know that you're busy. You're starting your own business. You have clients to go and connect with. And so thanks again for joining us at Forward, Upward, Onward Together. And thank you, our viewing audience, for watching us. Remember, we are showing at 6 p.m. every Tuesday. Again, thank you so much for watching us. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe on RBNTV.
You're watching RBNTV. We are networking, promoting, we're scoring points for you, proclaiming, declaring, here to encourage you. No matter the problem, we will enlighten you. We hear you, please listen, there is a point of